Google ads. But that's $7.5 million if you get 1 billion of them. So I'm not greedy, and I'm happy with that kind of money. Most people can't get that kind of volume. So they take sponsored. And as soon as you see the beginning of that, it's going to say, this ad is sponsored by, you know what you do when you hear that? You hang up because you know it's baloney. I don't say that because nobody's sponsoring you. Now, I've got a lot of people mad at me over the years, but mainly it's people that can't handle the truth, because either they're a mechanic who's ripping somebody off, they're a manufacturer that are ripping somebody off, they are a software company that's ripping somebody off, and they get mad at me. But I just say, hey, show me the truth. Show me some of one of your things, and I'll try it if it's good. But if it's bad, I'm going to tell people it's bad. And people are so hard up now to find out what the truth is. That's why I get so many views.
See, I agree with everything you just said, but I will add one thing to it. And that is, I think you have arrived at the right place in history, a point where people are so fed up with being lied to for so long and having so few sources for the truth that when you arrived on YouTube, it was like the dam burst, the floodgates open, and here comes the truth.
Well, and that's true. And it's kind of fascinating with me because before this, I've always been a mechanic. I've been fixing cars for 52 years. But for about 14 years, I was a car talk guy for CBS TV here in Texas called Crank It Up with Scotty. And I did that for about 14 years. And then television, of course, is a dying medium, especially local TV. And they said, oh, we can't afford to pay you anymore. That was 2007, right? 2007 is right about when Google bought YouTube. So I went from making $40,000 a year doing a TV gig that took me about an hour a week to making millions on YouTube because I hit it at the right point. That was right when they started to monetize. If I would have done what I did now back then, I would have made nothing because I didn't pay it for videos. But I got in the bottom ground floor, and I just tell people the truth, and people are like, wow, this guy. And they could see the thing about what I'm doing is they can see that I'm telling the truth by one thing. I show them how to fix their car. And if it works, they know I'm telling the truth.
Scotty, I'll tell you something even funnier. They can't see your eyes, and they can still tell that you're telling the truth. How ironic is that?
Yeah,
you're always wearing sunglasses, and yet they can still tell that they're hearing the truth. I think that's hilarious. So when did you post your first YouTube video? Was it in
2007.
When I first saw you, I instantly understood the reason for your success, and that was the honesty, and also the lack of other venues to hear honesty when it comes to cars. So that made complete sense to me. I think that you are rapidly approaching a point where major car manufacturers who put new cars onto the market, if they don't receive your endorsement, if they don't get a thumbs up from you, it'll seriously affect their sales. I'm not sure where they're yet, but I think we're very close to that point.
Well, it's the opposite, actually, because let's face it, most corporations are dead from the neck up. But I've actually done the opposite thing. I've been doing that for decades. I have lost companies fortunes. I have probably cost Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, hundreds of millions of dollars of losses because some people seriously think they're good cars until I tell them, look, buddy, I fixed them for 52 years. Mercedes were great cars back in the 1960s and 70s. They aren't anymore. And so many people said, gee, thanks, Scotty. Or they'll send me an email and say, well, we didn't listen to you. We bought one. And now we should have listened to you because it's a pile of junk. So I kind of go the opposite way. And I enjoy it because I like helping people. I mean, the main reason I became a mechanic, because I was a kid. I didn't have any money to fix cars. So I learned how to do it myself. Well, the same thing with this. I'm giving people advice. I hate seeing people get ripped off because I hate getting ripped off. So the funniest thing is if somebody ever sends me a product that's a ripoff, every once in a while I do a video on, here's some real ripoff products. And I show them why they don't work.
Have you ever noticed that no matter what you go to the dealer service center with, the repair bill is never less than $1,000? Never.
Well, yeah, see, it used to be. I met a guy when I was road testing a Shelby Cobra years ago on a beach in Galveston. And they tend to attract attention when you're driving a 660 horsepower Mustang on a beach doing donuts. So the guy comes up and he says, hey, Scotty, how you doing? I said, oh, yeah, I'm doing fine. He says, you know, my good mechanic, decades ago, every time I went, it was a C spot, $100 for repair. He said, now it's 1,000 instead. I said, well, inflation, you know. The problem is overhead. I run my own business by myself. My overhead is actually negative. You go to an average dealership, the overhead is anywhere from $1 to $10 million a year. Who's paying it? The people who take their cars in to get them fixed. The service advisors, they get paid a percentage. Now, it might only be 2 or 3% of what they sell for repairs, but still, if it's a $5,000 bill, he gets 2% of it. It's all money in their pocket. So it's a fake economy to sell things to people. And I see that. I get people coming here that went to a dealer. They'll show me an estimate. It'll be for $3,000. I look at their car and I'm like, well, half of it's a lie because you don't have any leaks on the axle and your brakes are still real thick and they work good. But, you know, if you want me to fix this for a couple $100, you know, you can wait on it. And I'll say, I'll go ahead and fix that. But I see that every day.
Well, I got to tell you, the last time I went to a car dealership service center, they took a look at it and they quoted me $2,400. So I took the car to a local mechanic. He took a look. Within 5 minutes, he saw the problem. It was 2 loose bolts. He tightened them and didn't charge me a penny. And that's how you conduct business. A little bit of honesty generates lifelong loyalty. And I've used the guy ever since.
Where did you find a guy like that in New York City? I didn't know there were any.
Oh, this is outside of Washington, D.C., Alexandria, Virginia.
Okay, yeah, well, you can. Because if you're in New York City, forget it. There are no honest mechanics.
Same thing in Los Angeles. Same thing in Los Angeles, you know. It's really.
Oh, yeah. The other day, I was in L.A. doing some business on the internet. And just for kicks, I wanted to see what they were charging at the Mercedes-Benz deal. And they were charging $240 an hour labor. $240 an hour labor. And of course, they even cheat on that. They work on it for 2 hours and charge you for 6.
I'll tell you something even more pathetic. Do you know a lot of lawyers charge less than that per hour? 100, 150 per hour for a law degree.
Not here in Houston. They're usually about 5 to 7.
So how many episodes do you shoot a day and how many episodes a month?
2. I do 2 every day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I do 2
do you still work on cars for other people or do you just focus on the show?
Yeah, during the weekdays, because there's other guys out there, and I won't name any names, but anybody who knows what I'm talking about. Guys that started out like me, and most of them weren't as worldwide savvy as me, because I mean, I run my own business. I almost finished my PhD. But these guys were like working at dealerships as good mechanics. They were good line mechanics. They started YouTube and they started to get a little fame, and the fame went to his head and they stopped working on cars and went to YouTube. Well, now I have 10 times the amount of views they have because they stopped working on cars, so they're no longer in tune with what actually breaks on the cars because the technology is always changing. And they're not keeping up with it because they're not fixed anymore. They thought that, oh, they could just take sponsors and make money. But then they found out that I already knew, because I'm a businessman and I worked on TV, that media doesn't give the proverbial rat's ass about anyone. And they'll use you for a year or 2 and then spit you out and put somebody else in place. And so now they're stuck because they don't know the new cars. They can't fix the new cars. And nobody's watching their videos because they don't understand anything about the new cars that they want to know about.
You know, I'm amazed at how many computers are on board a lot of the cars now. You know, you would think these manufacturers would put out at least one car, very simple, very few computers, designed to be a low budget, reliable vehicle, but that's not the case. Things are just getting more and more complicated.
Well, they have to be. They can't with the EPA pollution controls and gas mileage. The gasoline engine is almost to the pinnacle of efficiency that it do. It's basically a heat pump that sucks air through and blows you down the road. And they're so close to the peak efficiency, in order to get a mile a gallon more, you're squeezing and squeezing with the super high technology that can be done, but it's so complicated. Today, if you get 100-something thousand out of a car, you're probably going to have to junk it because all that electronic computer plastic crap's going to break. Where if you have like a 67 Mustang, that thing can run forever because it doesn't have any computers on it at all. And it could just be fixed and run and run and run. But they can't, by even law, make those cars anymore.
Do you think your videos are making it more and more difficult for mechanics to rip people off?
Of course. Knowledge is power. You know, I tell people, and I've even done this with a bunch of women, and I'll say, look, yeah, you're not going to fix your car. And they said, no, we're not going to fix our cars. We'll break our fingernails. I said, but you go out and buy one of these little dongles that's an OBD port analyzer. You plug it into your dash and get your smartphone out and attach it. And you can get trouble codes, live data. You can get all kinds of stuff. And even if you don't understand everything, you can go in and you can say, oh, well, I've got trouble code PO146, and it says what it is, which means this. I want you to fix this. And then they're not going to be, oh, man, you can't just pull the rug over her eyes because she's going to do a little research on this stuff. And like I say, even if you're not fixing it, even, let's say, you don't even know what that means. You got the number. Google it. And people like me on the internet will explain to you what that means. Knowledge is power. There's no arguing that.
Yeah. So let me ask you, somebody's young, starting out, they don't have much money, they've got $5,000 for a used car. What do you recommend to them?
Well, don't have your eyes bigger than your pocketbook. You know, I mean, you want dependable transportation. You cannot beat a Toyota Corolla. Those things can run forever and almost as good as a Honda Civic. Now, if you want a bigger car, if you can find a Toyota Camry or a Honda Accord in that price range that doesn't have too many miles. But see, then again, too many miles is a lot different for Japanese cars that are well made. I got a Toyota Celica with 250 in the driveway. It still runs like a clock. You know, say you buy a Chrysler. If it's got 110,000 miles, it's probably ready for the junkyard. You got a Toyota Corolla or Camry with 110, it might go 400,000 or 500,000 miles. So if you can pick one up for $4,000 with 100,000 miles, it can still go a long way.
I have to say, I saw a number of your videos on how reliable Lexus cars are, and that made the decision for me. And I really love the Lexus. It feels
they're great cars.
So well engineered.
If you buy them new, they're awful expensive. But my wife's ES300 I bought it with 60,000 miles for $3,000 here in Houston. Boy, that's the best car I ever bought.
What do you think of the new Corvette C8?
Okay. Those are toys. They've always been toys. Now, they're starting out with a new design. They never made a mid-engine production one. They actually made some mock-ups years ago, but that was the first mid-engine production one. Personally, I would never buy a GM product that is the first one of anything because they make so many mistakes with their vehicles. And of course, you're going to pay a ton because they only made a certain amount, and the coronavirus has knocked that even further down. So the prices they're getting are well over the suggested list price. And my advice would be, especially on one of those, wait 3, 4, 5 years because they're toys. People that have them might get tired of them. You can get a used toy pretty cheap. You're never going to get a new one cheap. But with the Corvettes, there's only 2 types of drivers. There's the people that drive like absolute maniacs and burn them out. But in the case of those Corvettes, that isn't going to be that many because kids like doing it. There's no kid I know that can afford one of those things, right? So you're getting adult male drivers buying them. And if they don't beat the heck out of them, hey, they can be great cars. And if the guy, something happens, maybe he got married, had a kid, and the wife says, you're getting rid of that thing, you know, we're getting an SUV, you can get a decent deal. And there's plenty of older Corvettes out there that you can get good deals on because a lot of guys, they only take them out Sundays when it's not raining, and you can get a 10, 12-year-old one and maybe it's only got 20,000 miles on it.
So I have to tell you, we checked you out, and I want to tell you what legitimized you in our eyes. What made you appear very sane and very reasonable. I know you have a 7-figure income off YouTube, and you can purchase whatever car you wanted whenever you wanted. Yet you hang on to an older car because it's still reliable and dependable and works. It's your daily driver.
Yeah.
And I love that because it says a lot about you as an individual. You know, you're practical and you're reasonable, and you're not going to self-destruct with this sort of gluttony and hedonistic and ridiculous spending that so many celebrities self-destruct with.
Well, especially, see, since I'm in that business, all right, I've been driving cars for 50 years. You know how much money I've spent? If you total every, not my wife's cars, but every personal car I bought is less than $7,000, all of them combined in a pot. Now, people might say, oh, well, you're boring. But for fun, I like motorcycles. I've got a Triumph Thruxton motorcycle. Motorcycle power to speed is better than a Ferrari. Yeah, you don't want to go 200 miles an hour on a motorcycle. You'll definitely kill yourself. In a Ferrari, you can because it's got 4 wheels. But it's so much more fun and cheap. And of course, every motorcycle I ever bought was used too. But even if I want to go fast in cars, whoop-de-doo. I get on the phone to whoever and say, hey, this is Scotty. Send me one of these. I want to try it out. And they'll send it, and I'll try it out. Plus, I still work on them. So I got tons of customers. A guy down the street has a Aston Martin, and I've driven Ferraris. I worked on them once in a while, but they're pain in the butt to get parts for it. When they get that snobby, like if you take something stupid like on an old car, a distributor for a Ford would be $10. They'd be $800 for a Ferrari, even though they're both made out of plastic. So, people buy those things, they're just plain stupid, snob appeal. But I like driving fast things. But with my own personality, I'm easily bored. That's why I keep doing new things, because I get bored easily. And I would never want an expensive fast car, because after about a day or two, I'd be bored with it.
So I'll tell you what I and everybody else has noticed about new cars, and that is each year they come out, they feel a little cheaper, a little lighter, a little chinsier. The knobs, the doors, they increase the technology, but the car itself feels lighter and cheaper and smaller.
Well, they are lighter and cheaper. There's no arguing that, because the lighter they make them, the better gas mileage they get. And I road tested a car the other day, and I thought it was a fantastic car, and it got 52 miles a gallon. So I took it on the highway, and then it was horrible because it had no insulation. You heard all the noise, and you hear the diesel trucks passing you, and you hear the rumble on the road because they took all the insulation off the car. Now, speed, though, is the opposite, and this is actually a bad thing. They make modern cars. They can go as fast as they want. Most of them are just limited by computers. They can go much faster, but they wear out faster. Take a Ford Mustang, always known with a V8 engine. A few years back, they put one of these Mazda-derived 4-cylinder engine. Okay? This is a 4-cylinder engine that puts out 345 horsepower, right? And it goes like stink. But the engines wear out faster because it's a little engine with a turbocharger and gasoline direct injection that's like 1,400 psi pressure, and all that pressure wears the engine out faster. So they actually are making them so they're smaller and lighter and faster, but they won't last as long.
So you regularly go after some manufacturers for putting out cheap, unreliable, undependable products.
When I see something bad.
My question to you is, have any of them ever tried to bribe you or threaten you with a cease and desist letter?
No one ever threatened me, because they see how many views I have, and they know I would make a video out of it and say, well, these guys threatened me for this. Look, they got all these problems, and they threatened me for telling them. So they never do that. But on the other hand, yes, I've been approached with bribes numerous times for all kinds of things, and I don't take them. So they would never give me enough money. Because they're too cheap, They're not going to pay me if they give me $1 billion, I suppose I'd do it, But they're never going to offer me $1 billion. So it's not going to happen. Although I do have to say, in my business, one time a guy came from a dealership. It was a Chrysler dealership, and they wouldn't let the guy drive the used car to me. The sales guy did. So he brought it to me, and I started checking out, and I said, well, this car's been in a wreck. It had one of those Carfaxes that said it wasn't in a wreck, but that's BS. It's just paperwork. They don't know what they're doing half the time. And I'll tell you a story about that. My old photographer at CBS had a Honda Civic he bought totaled from a body shop. It's total. Then in the next 5 years, he got totaled 2 more times by women in Suburbans and Expeditions. So it was totaled 3 times. He decided to buy a used Toyota. So he pays for the Carfax thing. And he's like, oh, I think I'll check the Honda for giggles. It said it had never been wrecked, and they knew it had been totaled 3 times, And they went through insurance companies, too. This wasn't under the table. They were all paid by insurance, and it said it was never even in a wreck. So you can't believe any of that stuff. It's all, it's all lies. So I really don't. So the sales guy says to me, well, what if I give you $100 for you tell him to buy the car? I said, no, but I'm going to tell him that you offered me $100 to tell him to buy the car. Needless to say, he didn't buy the car.
Scotty, how do your kids feel about having a YouTube superstar for a dad?
Well, they're not here anymore. I got grandkids in Boston and grandkids in Nashville, So, You know, they didn't want to be mechanics, either of them. My older son, he graduated Phi Beta Kappa, magna cum laude from the University of Vermont. He works for a law firm in Boston. And my other son dropped out of high school and became the chief engineer door gunner for the 101st Airborne. And they wanted to send him to West Point, but he didn't want to sign up for another 6 years. So instead, he went around shooting stuff in helicopters. And then when he retired in Nashville, he's now a real estate magnate worth millions. So they're doing fine. They didn't want to fix cars. I don't blame them. It's a pain.
So I want to thank you for coming on the show. Do you have anything you'd like to promote before we let you go?
Oh, just that, you know, subscribe to the Scotty Kilmer channel, watch my videos, and tell them every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, I do my half-hour YouTube live shows where anybody on the frickin' planet can ask me car questions and I answer them live.
Well, listen, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you on. Keep up the great work, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Okay.